Hello there, Master Hellish here, and welcome to my Railroute tutorial series. If you want to know more about me, check out masterhellish.net or look at my YouTube channel. Now, we are going to be looking at Railroute from the very beginnings and the fundamental what is Railroute all the way through to the complex automation, red XP and all that sort of good stuff in this series. So remember, there's going to be a link in the description of this video to the playlist for the entire series. But first of all, you might be saying, what is Railroute? Railroute is a management and simulation game with a hint of a puzzle element. It focuses on the operation and expansion of a railway network. Now you take on the role of a railway dispatcher and you're tasked with growing and managing this network. Now the game combines various different elements, both from strategy and puzzle solving, in a number of different game modes. So what game modes are there in Railroute? Well, there are 3 to choose from. In Rush Hour, you have to sustain your network through ever-increasing difficult waves, and you have to improve your railway network and route your trains on it in order to be able to handle more and more trains in each wave. Then there is Timetable. In Timetable, you are given a network and you are also given a predefined timetable. And you have to route the trains according to that timetable as precisely as possible, making sure that nothing gets in each other's way and everything flows perfectly smoothly to get that perfect score. And then we have Endless, possibly the most popular game mode and definitely my favourite. You have to build your own railway network empire almost completely from scratch, and as you go along you have to unlock advanced technologies to progress through the map and manage more and more new contracts in a ever increasingly and more busy network and timetable to create the ultimate network empire. Now in this series we will be looking at each of those game modes in its own turn, but as Endless is the most broad one, we're going to use that to demonstrate the basics of the game, its interface, what you can find, where you can find it and how you can get started. So here we are in the game, and across the top we have the main menu, and in there we have the map section, and it's here we find our 3 game modes. We can go over to Endless and it presents us with a wide array of different maps to choose from. We can filter them with the options in the top left hand corner, but today we're going to be looking at the Prague map to give ourselves our starting example. We can take a look at the details or just direct play it, and in the details screen you can see your recent saves and some information about how difficult it is and the type of mode that it is, as well as going to the leaderboard. Let's start a brand new game in Prague. Now the first thing we're presented with is the option to have some kind of sandbox features like unlimited amounts of money and upgrades and tiers, but we're going to go through the progression a little bit, so we're going to leave all that off and have the default gameplay. And here we go, we are in, and the first thing I'm going to do is press the space bar because that will pause the game. Now, we'll have a look at the controls in a minute, but first I'm going to draw your attention to the top of the screen, where the first thing we have here is your money. Call it pounds or dollars or even hellish coins, whatever you want to call it, we have 10,000 of them, and you'll need this in order to expand your network. All your signals and tracks and sensors will cost you money, but having trains complete their contract journeys will give you money. Next up is your score. This is really what you're chasing in Endless mode. You want this number to go up, and as we look at this later on, you'll see how that's made up. And the next 2 is your XP. There's 2 different sorts, green and red. You'll need these for system upgrades, and we'll have a little look at system upgrades soon. At the top right, we've got our help and menu options, and in the bottom left, we've got our construction, system upgrades, and contracts. Again, we'll have a closer look at them soon. We've then got the big bottom bar, and what's on this bar changes depending on what you're doing at the time, so we'll use it as we go through, whether that be items for construction or information about trains. And then right in the middle there we've got our time and our game speed. Now this is important because you might want to vary this throughout the course of your game. You might have periods of time where it's just so busy you want to play on a one-time speed, and you might have more quiet times when your automation is nicely set up and you want things to progress a little quicker and get those money and XP rolling in. You would probably want to bump the speed up. And then we come to the main part of the screen, and this is our railway network. In this starter network, we have 3 stations. Some of those stations have more platforms than others, and we also have some track joining them up and some signals. And this is what we're going to operate with in this tutorial. Now on the left hand side here, you can see that we've got a timer, and if I unpause for a moment, you can see that that timer is counting down. We're expecting a train to arrive there, and if we have a look at the contracts button with the shortcut key of I, you can see that we've got a number of contracts already lined up to us. We can have a look at these a little bit more detail later, but from here you can edit and delete them and so forth, but these are the starting ones that we're going to be working with. So we need to tell this train to come onto the station, and to do that we click this button and the platform. Now if I hover over it, it tells me the information about the train. It tells me the times, the station, and more importantly right now, which platform it's expecting. If you send trains to the wrong platform, you will get penalties. Now here it wants to go to platform 2. So I'm going to click the little icon and then I'm going to click platform 2. Now before I do that, notice we've got a tooltip. In this game, the user interface is really good, and there's lots of cool bits of information, mini tutorials, and tooltips all over the place. Take note of them. I find them really useful, and it tells me things that you may not have even known without having a little look at the information that's there. Right, so clicking on platform 2, and you can see that that's now changed for the train to arrive. It's not doing it because the game's paused, so I'm going to click the play button down the bottom here. And here we have our representation of this train. Now, at the bottom here, you can see some information about this train because we have the train selected. This is COM 1021. It's a commuter train, and it tells you its current and maximum speeds, and it gives us some buttons of different things we can do. Now, next, this train will want to go to the other station on the other side. To do that, we need to make sure that these points are all configured in the right way, and then activate our signals to be able to go through it. You can see we've got a countdown timer next to our train. This is the amount of time remaining we've got at the platform before it's going to be moving on. Now, at the moment, these points are fine, so I'm just going to mess them up in order to be able to demonstrate changing them. You saw me change them, so I'm going to change them back. A simple click on these switches will allow you to specify which way they want to be facing. Once you've got your route set, you can then click on the signal. That will allocate the route along the line. There we go. It's all gone green now. Jobs are good. Now we don't have to worry too much about which platform we're going to be arriving at, because currently we only have one. And the train does indeed want to go to platform 2. Now, we've got 20 odd seconds to wait, and like I said earlier, there might be times you want to fast forward, so we're going to do that now. I'm going to blast the game down to 25 times speed, and you can see our train makes progress along the line. Now, as it goes through a section of track, you can see it turns red, and that's because this is an active piece of track. If you're building, you can't make changes to this, and you can't then change switches and things until it's gone past that active section of track. Okay. Now the train is pulling into platform 2 on the other side. We'll give it a little pause because a couple of things have happened. Firstly, the train has changed colour. This is a nice way to help you identify which direction and platform the train wants to go to next. In this case, the colour of the train matches the station that it's going to. However, the train is facing the wrong way. You can see it's got some little lights on the front, and the kind of cabs of the carriages have a little angle to them. We need to point the train in the other direction. To do so, we click on the train, and you can see now that the cabs have turned yellow. If we play, we can see that the train is already on its way, but when it gets to the end of the platform, it will turn around. Now the train is expected on platform 1. We can tell that if we hover over the train, because it tells us on the information screen. We can also tell that down here on the bottom bar if we click on the train, and we get the train information. And we can also tell because there's a waiting timer on platform 1 with a label for the train. So let's make sure that we have our switch correctly changed to make the route the right way, and we activate our signal to get the train to its destination. Again, I'm just going to fast forward that to get the train to the other side, and there we go. We've dispatched our first train and it's made its first journey. When that train completed its journey at docks, two things happened. We got some money and we got some green XP. You can see we've got 13,600 in the bank now, and we have an experience point. We can use this in the system upgrades. Let's have a look at those system upgrades. So down in the bottom left hand corner here we have the system upgrades button, and that brings us to this screen. There's quite a lot of information here, so we'll work our way through it. At the top we have the selection between green and red. These are two separate progression routes available in Railroute. We'll look more at what the individual things are within those progression routes later. The next thing you see is this particular progress bar, and it says per cycle. Now this is where we're going to take a quick moment to talk about cycles. The entire Endless game is broken up into cycles, and you have a certain set timetable which then repeats every cycle. So all of those trains that we've been seeing and all of the contracts that we're going to be looking at are for each cycle. So the progress here for the current cycle says that we've got one train that's completed on time and 5 trains still to run. That's quite good. We haven't had any late or delayed yet. Now, we can take this information and look at this bar, and you can see that we have made a tiny weeny bit of progress across the screen. And as we go across the screen, we get different things that we can have. When we get to 8 per cycle, we get a bonus 3 red experience. This kind of unlocks that second tech tree, so to speak, in the system upgrades. And then we go to 10, which is T2, and right at the end of the screen there, 25 is T3. So what are these T1, T2 and T3s? Well, if we go down to the next section, you can see here that we've got all of these system upgrades, and they're broken up into 3 different sections. The Tier 1, 2 and 3. So Tier 2 and Tier 3 are locked, and Tier 1's unlocked. So you can see all the different upgrades. We've got a description of the name and an icon and how much they're going to cost you. So at the moment, in this whole Tier 1 section, we can only actually afford 2 of the upgrades. Now when you select one of the upgrades, on the left hand side it gives you a little description and micro tutorial, and you can actually click the button then to see about playing the tutorial if it's relevant. Let's see, if you go to timetable adjustments, see it's not relevant there, so it's no in-game tutorial for that one, but for example automatic routing, we've got one there for that. So these are actually very useful. We will be talking about these components and how to use them in a much more detailed sense later in the tutorial series, but to get a bit of a kind of a starting idea, this bit of information on the left hand side is very important. So how do we unlock one? Well, we select what we want to unlock. I'm going to choose signal safety because being safe is a good idea. Being able to not dispatch a train into another train is a good idea. If you end up with a train crash, you actually end up with a lose condition and you have to reload a save, or if you want to, start again. So I'm going to install that upgrade. There we go, and we've now got the signal safety upgrade. So I've just gone and done a bit of dispatching, and we've completed a few train journeys, and in that process I've earned ourselves some money and some experience, but we've also got a score, so let's have a look at that. So if we hover over our score here, you can see we've got the cycle report, some information. It says that I completed 5 complete journeys on time in that cycle. It tells us the rewards and the penalties, as well as upkeep, construction and so forth. Now as we go forward, this will tell us about our previous cycles as well, and you'll see how your score is progressing over time. That's if you hover over it. If you click it, it brings you to this screen, which tells you your progress towards the entire kind of grand target for the level. Now, at the moment, the target for this level is set to 20 green and 20 red experience. So once you've got them, then you get your 2 stars for the whole entire thing. Right, let's continue now, and knowing that we want to get a better score and we want to make more money, we need more trains, but our network is insufficient. Let's go into construction and change things. So over here in construction, I've just pressed the construction button, we have a brand new view. There's parts of the network which are labelled with these black and yellow areas, and these are squares that we cannot build in. However, there's lots of squares we can build in, and it is the squares that's important. These you can see my mouse cursor snapping to the center of each square, and this is the grid line of which we build our network upon. There are a few different sections across the bottom here. We've got connections, which is mostly our track and tunnels, signals, of course signals, sensors, which do all sorts of fantastic automation, and buildings, which we'll have a little look at later. Then there is the delete mode. So if you click the bulldoze icon there, you can go and get rid of something. Let's get rid of that bit of track. I don't think we're going to need it. And maybe we're not going to need that signal. We're going to get rid of that too. Just a little click in that bulldoze mode removes whatever you need to remove. And then there is a sub mode of the building mode. You can go down into buy mode. You can buy platforms in auto blocks here. So if we click that button, you can see the screen changes again, and we're able to purchase different things. Now, the amount of platforms you can have will depend on how much system upgrades you've unlocked, and whether you can purchase the auto blocks. This is an auto block here. Is dependent upon your system upgrades as well. You can say I hover over it now and it says it is locked. It is locked in the system upgrades. You need to buy it. But what we can do is purchase a platform. Now I'm not sure if we're going to use it, but we'll purchase it anyway. So you can see it says buy here for $1,500. So we can click that, and now we have a platform with its signals. But we want to be able to get more trains on this network, and having one line in each for trains going in both directions is not really good enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to the track, and we're going to select some track and build some track here and change this so we can have trains going both ways. So let's have a look here. So let's start out. I'm going to put a piece of track in like that. You click at the starting point and you can drag it to where you want to go, and it'll try and work its way around things quite nicely for the most part, and it will show you a preview of what the track would look like if it can work it out. See, if we go to certain parts, it says construction not possible. That's because you can't go through that little gap down there. But I'm going to change it so... oh yeah, there we go. We're going to do that. Okay, that's a good section of track. I like that. What we're going to do now is then connect up these two platforms here to our new sections. I think we'll go straight down and across here. And what we'll do is actually remove... I'm going to use the keyboard binding of X on my keyboard to toggle between the bulldoze mode and get rid of that. And I'm going to add one bit of track in here so that we can get up that line and into docks, because most of our trains come out of platform 2, and if they're going to docks, we're going to need that little connection I just put in there. Right, also I think I will put in a couple of signals. We can afford to do so. So I'm going to put a signal in here before going into one platform. I'm going to put a signal here before going into the other one. That way we can send a train towards a platform even if there is a train loading or unloading in the platform itself. Now, one of these signals is the wrong way around. This one's fine. You can see the kind of red hue and flat face of the signal is facing the direction it wants to, but this one is not. But to turn the signal around, we just click it and boom, it goes the other way. And there we go. We've now improved the track. Well, so that is basic track building, and that is basic signal additions. If you want to look at the kind of the extra things like shunting commands and all of the sensors, they're going to be later in the tutorial, in the series. So get subscribed for the further videos on that. Now, let's use this, shall we? So we're going to come out of the building mode by right-clicking in the middle of nowhere, and that brings us back into the normal view. And we can allow trains to come along our track. So I'm going to unpause now. We'll go to 10 times speed. That seems like a nice manageable thing for now. And we're going to look at the next bit soon, the contracts. But you can see now we can get a train, dispatch it onto this platform, and we can adjust these points to allow the train to go where it needs to go. Now at this point, if we had a train come in the other direction, the green line would actually be blocking it over here. We can't do a signal. Look, path occupied. If I try and get the path out of there, it won't let me do it. Okay. But if we were having two trains going on the other lines, then maybe we could do that. But we've only got one train at once using this line. But what we're going to do is look at the contracts to get more trains. Okay, so contracts. So for contracts, we're going to go down to the bottom left-hand corner and click on the contracts icon, and this shows us our available and our offered and active contracts. These are the ones that we've got active at the moment. You can see in each cycle we have a number of trains. We have 3 doing one route and 3 doing the other route, and it gives you the information about the reward, how much it's going to be. And on the right-hand side, we've got options to adjust the schedule, which we won't actually be able to do because we haven't unlocked it. If we click that button, it'll take us to the schedule, but we can't change the platform. If you change the platform, it will jump us to the system upgrades, and it will show you where the upgrade is and how much it's going to cost. So it actually highlights it for you. Okay, so let's come out of that menu, go back to where we were, and if we try and change the arrival time, we can click that as well, and it will go, no, 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 you need that system upgrade. So the game is very helpful for guiding you in that way. So let's come back out of this because we can't change this particular schedule yet, and we'll go back to the contract screen. Now we can also get rid of a contract. We can dismiss a contract. We can delete it. We're not going to do that because I want to keep these contracts because they're going to give us money and points. Now what we are going to look at doing is getting some new contracts, some trains that are actually that we can get more money for. So what we can do that in one of 2 ways. We can go over to the Offered tab, and that lists the current contracts that are available for us to accept. And you can see we've got trains that want to go on this particular journey, how many legs it's gone, and how often it repeats. And also we can accept or decline them straight from this screen. I said there's 2 different ways of doing it. That's one. The other way is back on the other page. So if we come out of the contract screen, you can see that we've got these little buildings here. These little buildings, right, are the conductor's offices, right? And if you middle click on them, it will show you the sort of contracts that that particular office will allow you to have. Now later, if you go into construction, you can see that we've got some other sorts of office. We've got a dispatcher's office, and that allows you to have different sort of contracts. So later on in the game, you'll probably want one of them. Back to the conductor's office, and you can see we've got this little green icon there, and if we hover over it, it gives us a preview of one of those trains services that was offered, one of those contracts, and you can see how much it's going to offer in terms of money, how much it thinks the travel time is going to be. And if we go over to the other conductor's office here, we can see that we've got the other contract there. So the contracts appear on the screen relevant to one of the offices. Now we are going to accept one of these. We're going to click this one, I think. When we click on that, it brings us into that schedule screen that we saw earlier, except this time something is a bit different. Okay, this time we're able to change the platforms and change the arrival time, and that's because when you first have a contract, you're able to specify these. Later, once we accept this contract, we won't actually be able to change it until we unlock that in the system upgrades. Okay, let's have a look now. So, most of our trains are arriving on platform 2. So I'm going to change this train to arrive on platform 2. And you can see we get a preview here where it goes from platform 2 at one side, across, and back on the other line that we built to platform 1. Fantastic. Now we do have some problems here. We've got some overlapping trains due at different platforms. These are the time zones within the day, and then we've got the different platforms that the trains are at and the little icons for the various different trains. But what we can do is move the trains backwards and forwards along this route to try and fill up a nice little gap. And I think that might work nicely. If we get the train to arrive onto platform 2 at 9:25, then it will arrive in a spot where there's not going to be a train on the platform. It will go and do its journey, and when it comes back again, it will go to platform 1 where it's available. Fantastic. I'm going to click the green ticket to accept that contract, and then that contract will come along at the time we've specified. So I'm just going to quickly do exactly the same thing with the other offered contract. Check the platforms, change the arrival time for a slot in the schedule. Things are getting quite busy there, but you know what? I think we'll be fine, and accept that one as well. Brilliant. So now we can fast forward a little bit more, and you can see we've got trains coming onto the network. This time when we dispatch the train, we have to allocate a route, and we have to be careful about where we're going to be allocating it to. I'm going to change this switch and allocate the route. And you can see this time, because we've got a signal here along the route, we don't actually dispatch the train or allocate the route the entire way. We have to then allocate the next section as well. But this is good. Dividing your track up into sections allows you to have multiple trains on the route. And because we accepted those contracts previously, we've now got another train on its way. And again, I can allocate the route for that one. Turn this train around. There we go. Turn around. And we can make sure that that switch is set correctly. Get the train to go there. And you can see the two trains are running at once. We can switch that switch, allow that one to come there. Get that train into there and allow that one back there. Turn that one around and then set that switch. Oh my goodness, it's starting to get busy, isn't it? But that's at 25 times speed with no automation. If we change it to 5 times speed, it becomes somewhat more manageable. So there we go. A small change in the network, building that track, accepting extra contracts, and now we've got multiple trains using the network at the same time. There are a few other important bits of information you could do with knowing as a beginner. If you do some building, there is a chance that you could end up building something that ends up with a warning. I just put a conductor's office in a docks, and it's got this little triangle next to it, and when you hover over it, it says invalid configuration. Now, if we middle click on that, you can see it's going to give us some information about the services that are available at that particular conductor's office. And it's saying, nope, neither of these services are available. This conductor's office wouldn't actually give us anything. Now, that is because if we middle click on the station itself, you can see here that the services available, or the contracts that we would have, means that the only one that we can have is freight. And currently, that is locked in the system upgrades. Of course, if we press it, it takes us to the system upgrades and shows us where it's going to be unlocked. So we have to be careful about what things we do at what stations and what contracts you can expect to see. You will also see this warning icon in other places for other things. Maybe you've misconfigured a sensor, or perhaps you configured it correctly but then changed the track somehow so that the previous configuration no longer makes sense. These little warnings do point those issues out for you, and you can just go into them, configure them and sort them out, and they're very handy, so keep an eye out for them. So throughout this tutorial you've seen lots of interesting and useful information when you hover over trains, when you hover over stations, and down here in the bottom bar. But some of these things you can click and they pop out and you can move them around, and you can see that they've got their own settings. You can change the amount of scale, and you can also lock it on the screen, and you can also pin them to different places as well. So if you want to, you can drag it around, and while it's in the middle section it'll just be a little floaty thing, but if you can actually get, for example, the station information here and bring it to the side, it will pin it in a nice little information window which you can extend and see your entire schedule of all the different trains expected at a station. I find this particularly useful in the early game when I want to max a particular station out, so I can see where the gaps are and look for contracts to fill those gaps. But bear in mind that you can actually get various different bits of information like the stations and get that and pin them in different places, and that can be very useful indeed. Now you may think we've covered quite a lot in this introduction and all the basics tutorial, but there's a lot more to Railroute than what we've seen here in this tutorial today. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you're looking at the playlist, and there's a link to that in the video description, so you can see all the videos in this series. And at the time of recording, not all the videos have been released yet, so get subscribed so you can keep an eye out for when those new videos are arriving. Now, put all your thoughts, ideas and questions down in the comments section, especially those questions. I do read them all, and if you found it useful, please consider giving the video a like. But I will see you sometime soon in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching, take care, and goodbye.